This episode of iFanboy is brought to you by GoDaddy.com, Netflix.com, and Click It or Ticket from the National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration.
So I think in this episode, we're going to set the record for most things wrong that we say.
It's not really our fault. I mean, look at the material. Who knows what the record is? I mean, it's not like we went back and fact-checked. iFanboy, the comic book show from the website iFanboy.com. I am Josh. I'm Ron.
I'm Connor. And today we are going to attempt to discuss Crisis on Infinite Earths and all the other crises because in the crises, DC crises, barring some sort of scheduling mix-up, in just a few days from now, you should see the release of Final Crisis, which is the next Crisis event.
The last one, supposedly. It's the final one.
So
it's scheduled to be shipping this Wednesday, but
yeah,
you never know what happens. But
so, as a sort of a primer, we're going to discuss the 3 or 4 previous crises and
go back
discuss.
in time
Yeah. So
I'm gonna have to buy this series.
Before we get going, I think before any crisis is discussed,
that's probably a good idea.
Yeah, that does it. I'm gonna leave that over here just in case something really confusing happens.
You snuck that in on us. We did.
All right, 1985. Picture this: 1985. DC releases Crisis on Infinite Earths, the 12-issue maxi series.
Why?
Because they got to a point with all of their multiverses and multiple versions of each character that it was just too confusing for new readers.
So what had happened is from the 40s until 1985, DC created a multiverse where there was Earth 1, which was the heroes that we know,
right.
Superman 1. Then there was Earth 2, which had the Justice Society.
But also like other Batman, everybody else was there too, but the Justice Society was the main character.
And then there was Earth Prime, which was our Earth, right?
No, that came up in Infinite Crisis.
All right, well, I'm just saying.
There was Earth 1 and 2.
Right.
And there was also other Earths. There was the Earth that had the villain versions of it. There was Ultimate.
The Crime Syndicate, which is the villain version of Jla. So they had all these multiple Earths, and they were crossing over a lot, and stuff would happen.
Was it the Flash?
The time treadmill.
But there's that Flash cover where Barry meets Jay.
Yeah,
that's on either side of the one. Isn't that like where it broke? Like where they started having the multiverses? Like that was the first time that they'd met?
Well, they started doing the Jla Jsa crossovers. And in order to do that, to make sense, because the JSA happened in the 40s, they said, well, they're not, they're on another Earth. Yeah. They just jump the time stream.
Right. Which was neat because, there were different adventures and different things that happened and stuff like that.
But again, it was just getting too confusing.
Multiple versions of the same character.
New readers come on and say, why are there 2 Supermans? Why is one have the weird S on his chest? And
why is one old? And
as an attempt to consolidate that, they got Marv Wolfman and George Perez, the team who were on Teen Titans.
Yeah, at the time they were hot.
They were the hottest team in comics. They brought Teen Titans as They became as popular as Uncanny X-Men at the time. They brought them up to that level.
Didn't last though.
Well, they did this, and then they.
Well, no, I mean Teen Titans didn't last, but popularity.
Uncanny X-Men didn't last either.
Anyway, so
as an attempt, they had a 12-issue series where the Anti-Monitor, who is the big villain in the series, decides he wants to destroy the universe of this wave of energy that's taking out all the universes.
Antimatter energy.
Antimatter wave and these antimatter creatures, and they basically take one universe at a time until all the heroes gather together at the end and they fight him. And it was a big deal in comics. It totally rebooted the whole entire DC universe from the beginning.
And there were consequences.
Big consequences. I remember as a kid, it was funny, as a kid, you'd always hear about it. This was like a big thing, especially if you read a lot of DC books. Crisis was like always lurking because in 85, 86, I was 10 years old. I was really starting to read comics a lot, and you'd always heard about this event where all these things happened, and you couldn't just go buy the trade then.
Right.
You had to. I was tracking down back issues at flea markets, at comic book stores, and I'd buy like issue 12, issue 9, issue 4. Like I never got them all in a row until I was much older.
Right.
Good times.
And you would sort of read them. You'd read them haphazardly and have to fill in the blanks. Oh, this is. You can't really imagine doing that now, is reading issue 11 first, and then going back and reading issue 2 and saying, oh, that's what happened, and then finding 4, and then.
Of course, now we're lucky because we got this lovely Crisis of Infinite Earths Absolute Edition, which is just huge and awesome.
So some of the big things that happened in this, Barry Allen died. This is on the cover of the absolutely you see Wally holding the costume, but they wanted to kill off a major hero to show that this was a big deal, and they ended up killing off Barry Allen and then promoting Wally West to be the new Flash. Supergirl was killed. It worked out well. Supergirl was killed. So a lot of all the non-Earth 1 people were killed.
Yeah, basically, didn't they consolidate so there was one Earth and one version of each character?
One version.
And sometimes it was the Earth 2 version, sometimes it was the Earth 1. But
they all ended up on the same Earth.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And what it did was in 1986, then when this was over, because it basically went to the end of the year. It was a year-long miniseries. You had Superman #1 by John Byrne. With Superman just got to Metropolis, and then you had Batman was rebooted with Batman Year 1.
They restarted
everything was restarted.
Yeah,
which was weird because people still sort of remembered the crisis happened, and it's the weird flexibility in the comic book time stream where they remember this event where people died, but they also
don't know.
We're young. It's very strange.
So for me, the layman,
right?
In 1985, after Crisis, so basically everything that would happen before Crisis, the stories still exist. You can still enjoy them, but according to the timelines, didn't happen.
Right. They were wiped out. Superman just gets to. Man of Steel miniseries, Superman gets to Metropolis. Before that, nothing happened.
Understood.
Him and Batman suddenly weren't best friends anymore. They butted heads, which is something they still do today.
Did this make things better?
For me, it did because, as I was saying, I was 10 years old in 86, or 9 years old, coming to comics really heavily for the first time. So now I've got all these new stories. I get to learn about Superman and Batman and Flash and all these people. The Justice League Keith Giffen Justice League came out of this, and for me, I was sort of starting along with the universe. So for me, it was great.
Are those the versions of the characters you know? I mean, I assume you were really familiar with the versions of the characters before that because you were too young.
Well, I did, but then again, I was also buying all the back issues. So I was reading about Barry Allen and the Justice League, and these are the ones that are truest to me are the ones from '86, those reboots. But I also buying constantly old issues, going to conventions and buying a stack of Justice League for $4. You get
right. But not everybody liked what happened. There was the fans didn't. Some of the fans did not like.
Well, as
shocking.
As with any reboot, there's the fans whose stories are wiped out.
Yeah, and it was interesting in 1985 when there wasn't as big of a critical.
Can you imagine this sort of thing happening now with an internet? This would have been disaster.
Yeah. But so
shitload of copies.
It would have, but people had to fester on their own. They couldn't fester in a community.
The Crisis on Infinite Earths, I read it within the past 5 years for the first time ever because I just kind of stayed away from the DC pandemonium and all that kind of stuff. I'm a huge Flash fan. And I wanted to read it though. But the thing that came out of Crisis that I loved the most was the Psycho Pirate, who was one of my favorite characters of all time. Now I have the action figure. He's awesome. I know. But but the question I have about Crisis is that so they had this multiverse problem, and then they do this to solve it.
Right.
Now, in the long-term effects, did it solve it?
Well, no, because there was 4 more crises afterwards.
The final one's coming.
But you have the great George Perez art.
Yes. Yeah.
I know a lot of people, Josh included, have a problem with the writing because it is very Marv Wolfman.
I tried to read this in the last year. I made it about halfway through it, and I was just like, I'm too tired because everything in it is no, but it's also overwrought. It really is. Like, everybody says everything that they're doing. Everybody's and then repeats it constantly. So
well, if you read the comics from that era, like go back and read the Dark Phoenix saga. It's written the same exact way, where they all talk about what they're doing.
Except there's 400 people in this one, and so
but
I'm a little like the main character, and the main characters, the people propelling it forward, are all people who I was unfamiliar with, which made it difficult to me because your main characters are Harbinger, Alexander Luthor, Pariah, Anti-Monitor, and the Monitor, and it's like. I don't know who these people are, so I didn't have anything to grab onto, I guess.
Yeah. It's just interesting because when you said that, that it was overwrought, but then at the same time there was almost like acknowledgement of that. Like I just opened up to a page here where they've got a gathering of heroes and Alexander Luthor's going through like a roll call and he's saying their name, like Superman of Earth 1, the greatest of all heroes, and he gets through like 5 of them. He gets Blue Beetle, who says, "Can the who's who? Let's get on with it." So like it's almost as if this to me feels like for DC the bridge between the Silver Age and the Modern Age.
Oh, absolutely, it is.
Yeah. I think it was the end of the Silver Age.
This was the closing the door on the Silver Age, and the Modern Age is born from this.
Exactly.
It's still my all-time favorite story. I'm drawn to the big apocalyptic end of the hero's stories, and this is the granddaddy of all of those, and this is my favorite one.
Yeah.
I love the death of Barry Allen. It's very heroic. He dies saving the universe, and he runs himself to death.
And this here's another version of this.
Well, this was the very first collection of it. They had never collected it until this one.
Right. And that was the hardcover with the Alex Ross wraparound.
Yeah, this was a big deal when it came out because they never ever collected it because they said it was too big, and then
it's too much.
And they made it bigger.
And they made it bigger.
Oh, hey. It's Gordon the intern here. I was just catching up on a little bit of work I had to do on the site. I understand there might be some issues with continuity and what's going on, so I've invited my friend Gordon of Earth 2.
Hey.
He's going to go ahead and help us out with a few things this week, including the promo. First thing I'll say, GoDaddy has they have .tv names, so if you're a video blogger, or if you have a video podcast or something and you want to add a .tv on the end to drive users to your site, you can go ahead and sign up for that at GoDaddy.com. So head over there, enter the coupon code iFanboy, you get 10% off your purchase. Gordon of Earth 2, is there anything you want to add? Watch the Indy 500 this weekend. It is on May 25th. It is brought to you by GoDaddy. And it's going to be awesome because Danica Patrick is hot. And she won the Indy 300 in Japan, and she might win the Indy 500. And there you have it. Hey, she is hot. Who's from Indianapolis? Wait a minute. She's in 5th position to start. So while we've got your attention, we thought we'd go ahead and talk to you about one other thing. Netflix.com. You can head over to netflix.com/iFanboy and you get a 2-week free trial. So that's all your DVDs, 90,000 titles. There's no...
DVDs?
What? We use tapes on Earth 2. On Earth 1 we use DVDs.
2.
Yeah. No, there's no late fees.
2.
No delivery fees.
So Crisis on Infinite Earths was going to solve everything.
1985.
Yeah.
By 1994, we're back to having a problem again.
Why?
It's just this is the way it goes. I mean,
You let a couple of the writers break some rules.
Yep. And then suddenly you've got, you're back to having too many continuities. Who was Hawkman? No one knew who the hell Hawkman was.
Right.
I
don't.
It's just it was not being very well maintained. So you had 0 Hour,
Okay.
which was later renamed 0 Hour Crisis in Time. Because
the marketing angle.
Because it was another Crisis. At that point, they just hadn't got to the Crisis branding yet. But it was another event to wipe out continuity and start over again. Hal Jordan was the big villain. He had turned evil and killed all the Green Lantern Corps. He became Parallax. He teamed up with Monarch, I believe.
Yeah.
And or was that Final Night? They teamed up with Monarch.
I don't remember.
This is the point of 0 Hour is it was horrible, and I haven't read it in like 10 years. So that's why
we
the
get a lot
are
of
frustrating.
0 issues. That was like the
Yeah,
gimmick.
everything was 0 issue.
Yeah, so.
It was a terrible miniseries. Dan Jurgens was a writer and artist on it, who I liked at the time. I was a big Dan Jurgens fan.
This is the beginning of the Dan Jurgens decline. If you ask
and it was
But
notable.
we like him on Booster Gold now.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
It was
That's the
notable.
redemption.
It was notable only for Oliver Queen, who was the one who had ended up killing Hal Jordan to save the universe,
Which is sad.
which was his best friend shooting him in the chest with an arrow.
But now,
It also retconned out some great stories like Batman Year One, Batman Year Two, and it was just no good.
but it did. Yeah, it didn't solve. It's caused more problems than it solved.
Yes.
Really.
People were not happy with the way it went. It was overall not very well received, and the fact that I remember.
Because I mean, the gist of it was that Hal was so distraught over the destruction of Coast City, just tries to remake the universe in his own image.
Yeah.
And therefore opening the door to tweak things, get rid of Batman's origin,
Right.
like all these kind of things.
And as such, since then, the whole Parallax thing has been changed around.
That was
Green
retconned.
Lantern retcon that he was like the
Unwitting pawn of Parallax, which was inside
Parallax
him.
was the manifestation of fear. It was the impurity of the green power battery, I believe, from Oa. So none of that happened the same way it did.
Right. So
Which
fast
is
forward
good.
another 10 years to the next Crisis, which is now a little bit contentious. We have a miniseries called Identity Crisis, which wasn't a universe-spanning event.
Not really a crisis.
Why don't you tell the people what it's about?
It's not a crisis in the branding
While I
sense.
do this
I mean, it was a
again.
crisis in the, hey, some bad shit went happen. We're having a crisis. It was a literal crisis, but not really.
No, I disagree. I think they called it Identity Crisis for a reason.
I think so, too.
I think it was acknowledged to be a crisis, not a crisis of the universal cosmic magnitude, like Crisis of Infinite Earth was, but a cosmic of the interpersonal core of what the DC universe, which is the Justice League, by putting in a story where their identities got compromised and they got hit at home. They put everything.
And they also splintered.
And they splintered, and it puts everything into question. And honestly, Identity Crisis to me is what has kicked off the quality level of the DC comics.
That's the book that brought me into DC.
Yeah, exactly.
Easily.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it had to be purposeful because the very next year, Infinite Crisis came out.
Yeah.
Those kind of books don't come along quickly, so they clearly were planning it.
Yeah.
So they would have not chosen the word crisis if
Yeah,
it had not been thematically another crisis,
Right.
just a
But
personal one.
I think you're right that it differs from Crisis or Infinite Crisis because those both get so Crisis and Infinite Earth. It's funny how we call Crisis of Infinite Earths that like if you say to me, "Did you read Crisis?"
Yeah.
It's Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Sure.
But for your newer readers, you say that and they think you mean Identity or Infinite
Well, that's
Crisis.
like Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See Star Wars, you
Exactly.
think of the first one.
But I do think Identity Crisis was meant to be a true Crisis of DC, but on a much smaller scale.
Okay,
you know?
in case you're curious, what Identity Crisis was is this: Brad Meltzer's first foray into comics. He's a novelist.
I don't know if it was his first. It was his.
No, it was his first.
Did he do Green Arrow after this? Or
Yeah, after. This was his first comic.
And what it was the Justice League started falling apart from the inside, and some really horrible shit happened to.
Well, basically,
It was
Susan
revealed.
Gibney-
It was revealed that the Justice League had been over the years neutering their villains by going into their brain and turning off their really evilness and making them. Why are all the villains such buffoons? Because they went in there and they surgically screwed with their brains.
Yeah, and actually, and like it set up that thing that Marvel was trying to do with Civil War, where they were trying to set up doubt and distrust among the heroes. Actually, I think in a way it was more successful than Civil War in a much more subtle way. I mean, it wrecked Ralph Dibny, and completely, and then Batman, who was not really a terribly trusting person to begin with, found that they'd messed with his memories, and great 7-issue miniseries, just fantastic.
Great art by Rags Morales.
Yep. Yeah, really, really good. And you know, edge of the seat. Each issue was just like you needed to know what happened next, and you know.
And oddly enough, that Meltzer is the kind of guy who writes. He writes
Thrillers.
True, but he writes very in-depth DC history stuff.
Yeah.
For me, as a person who was not reading a lot of DC at the time, I had no problem following. I knew, I knew the characters. I knew what was going on. It's a great DC story.
Yep.
Yeah.
Click It or Ticket is an aggressive seatbelt enforcement mobilization that will run from May 19th through June 1st, 2008 across the country. Thousands of enforcement agencies are participating in this campaign to increase seatbelt use and reduce fatalities across the nation. The goal is simple: to save more lives by convincing drivers and passengers day and night to always buckle up. So unless you want to risk a ticket or worse, your life, you need to always remember to click it or ticket day and night.
And that led the very next year, 2005, to Infinite Crisis, which was the official sequel to Crisis of Infinite Earths. Jeff Johns.
Middle Crisis, as they're calling it.
Right. Jeff Johns is the writer. Art by
Midlife crisis.
Phil Jimenez, George Perez, Ivan Reis, and Jerry Ordway. It was a very big miniseries. This was one I would love to reread.
Yeah.
Because I enjoyed it, and I didn't have a huge problem following it. I think a lot of people did because it included like everybody and included all this stuff, and it basically undid Crisis on Infinite Earths. It brought back the multiverse. It brought back multiple characters. The Superman 2 came back. Superboy came back from Superboy from Earth 2. It was just basically took Crisis on Infinite Earths and just smashed it with a hammer, and everything came back.
And what's interesting though, to a negative, was that it was kind of mired in kind of delays in release scheduling problems. And it seems that there were some storylines that were started with the first issue were rethunk and then rewritten later.
They lost their nerve on a couple of things. They were supposed to kill off Nightwing, and they didn't kill off. They decided not to do that.
And so there's a point in the story where you can see where where Nightwing is going to die, and then he doesn't, and so it's kind of weird. But then also when it was collected in trade paperback and hardcover, they rewrote some of the end to clear things up. So it's really kind of I don't want to say it was fumbled, but it wasn't.
That sounds like a fumble.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't a failure, but it was a fumble.
Yeah, yes.
At the same time, it's kind of gutsy to say, you know what, we can fix it.
Yeah.
Let's do it again. Let's admit we screwed up. I mean, there's that side of it, but in the nature of this serial kind of storytelling, we've got the
rewrites
universe.
didn't change the end.
Right.
The rewrites just got, and online there's more details of what the rewrites are, and we won't get into specifically and read the difference between the word balloons. But yeah, they didn't ultimately change what the
They just
result
tweaked dialogue, and they.
What we ended up with was the return of the Anti-Monitor. We ended up with Superboy being a villain and
major villain.
Yeah, major villain.
Superman Prime.
Superboy Prime. Yeah.
Not Superboy.
No, now he's Prime.
He's just called Prime. You're not allowed to call him Superboy. We are though.
We are. He's Superboy. Okay, Prime is Superboy.
You brought the multiverse back, which led directly into 52, which led directly into Countdown, which is now leading directly into Final Crisis. Now you wonder how much of that. You wonder how much of this has been planned. You wonder how much did we say we're going to start with this, we're going to go till this.
I would say 60%. Because you got to make some changes along the way, but I really got to hope that Dan DiDio and his editorial staff have had a plan from Identity Crisis forward.
Through Final Crisis?
Yeah, through Final Crisis. Of course, you make changes as people come with ideas and stuff like that. As the fans freak out, and you change what you're going to do because the fans freak out. Or, I don't know, if Warner Brothers finds out and changes what you need to do.
You can't kill Batman!
But I would safe to say that I'm hoping that it's all leading up to Final Crisis, which is Grant Morrison writing, J.G. Jones doing the art.
Interiors, which is going to be great.
Which is really interesting, just not on a story point, but on an execution point. I'm really the fact that as they've been doing it, they want to keep it on a monthly schedule, and because J.G. Jones is taking longer on the art, what they're doing is they're actually printing less of the story in the individual issues and putting more backup material, which I think is great, which is awesome, because that avoids the Civil War-esque thing that happened, and even with Infinite Crisis, where they get burned by the book being there. Because a book like this, a universe-changing book, needs to come out. It needs to come out on time because people are waiting for it. Mm-hmm. So
and everything hinges on it.
Yeah.
So the breakdown is Crisis Infinite Earths consolidated into one. 0 Hour didn't do shit. Identity Crisis was small. Infinite Crisis blew it back up. Now, what Final Crisis will do is anyone's guess.
What do you think? I mean, you're the DC.
Well, I mean, there's lots of rumors flying around. It's we've had all the new gods get killed. They're all dead now.
It's prefaced by the title. Death of the New God.
Death of the New God. I didn't know it was fantastic. Which is fantastic.
It was really good. Jim Starlin. Primo.
The rumors are that they're going to ascend some regular characters into the New God status to be the fifth world gods.
Yep.
The original rumor was Batman was going to die, but then Warner Brothers said you can't kill our golden goose.
Yeah, crazy. There's a movie coming out.
And a cartoon, and so really,
I would have loved to have been on that call. Yeah.
Paul.
There's just silence. We're gonna kill Batman. Silence.
Yeah, what can I do for you, Chief? I don't know if you noticed, but millions of dollars, tens. We had this successful sequel.
There's a Batman Brave and the Bold cartoon coming out. So that, I mean, no one really knows. I think Grant Morrison has rewritten stuff based on the changes we've heard of.
Now, what Grant Morrison do you think we're gonna get?
I'm hoping we get a combination of the JLA Grant Morrison and then the whacked out
52. Yeah. I don't know. I'm the fact that Grant Morrison is driving the bus on this one. If it, because we've talked about Grant Morrison at some point, and I mean, I'm excited to see what he comes up with, but the gods aspect of it makes me hope that doesn't get too highfalutin.
Well, I mean, it's gonna be cosmic. It's gonna be.
Do you think we're gonna lose anybody in the? Who do you not want to lose? Because
Flash.
Kill Wally. I'm done with Wally.
Well, we didn't mention in Infinite Crisis, Wally did die.
Yes, and then he came back.
Keeping up the tradition of losing a Flash in a crisis, and then they brought him back, and then they killed Bart, who was the Flash after Wally.
Now we have a neutered Wally in the...
Maybe he'll die, and we'll see a replication of this cover, and then it'll be someone else holding his costume.
We can only hope.
It'll be Jesse Quick.
No, she's now Liberty Bell.
Right, that's true.
I don't know. I hope that I hope that we don't, because we're loving Justice Society of America by Jeff Johns. I hope that doesn't get hurt too much, affected by it. Well, I don't know. I mean, you've seen these promo images of like those the motivational posters. Have you seen those in the books?
Yeah.
You know, where it's like whatever. Isn't one of them Our Man?
Yeah, one of them is Our Man.
Yeah. So you don't know.
Our Man.
I love Our Man.
He shows up on all sorts of incarnations all over the place in DC stuff.
I love him.
He's one of
He's actually on one of these covers here, but here he is.
Isn't everyone on the cover?
Yeah,
Well,
I think everyone is. Yeah,
That's kind of
right there in the center.
There's Paul Levitz.
So who knows what Final Crisis will bring us? Whether or not they brought the Earths, the multiverse back just to kill it again. They haven't really done a lot with it since it's been back. It really hasn't.
I hope they keep the multiverse because I love the multiverse. Yeah. I mean, I think it's really. I mean, I'm.
You would think they put a lot of work into putting it back and explaining what all the different worlds.
It's been too short.
Yeah.
We only had the multiverse for 2-3 years now. I don't think it's gonna go. I don't think.
And it's been caught up in Countdown 52. They haven't really done anything with it outside those books. So.
JSA.
What about it?
The JSA has used it too.
Yeah, they have.
Successfully.
Yeah.
So whether or not what'll it bring us, we don't know. We'll find out. maybe in a few months when it's over, we'll
It'll
come
look
back.
good.
We'll come back and talk about whether or not it was successful.
The repercussions of Final Crisis.
We'll have a sequel to this show
Yeah.
where there'll only be two of us.
Final
Because someone will be retconned out.
Yeah,
We're gonna go back. We're gonna digitally erase Josh from all the other.
I hope it's not him.
I know, because we're screwed.
Yeah. Now this one, that's Superman.
Come back and I'm wearing glasses and I got a brown blazer on.
I have a shaved head.
They've just consolidated us into two.
Ron Josh would be the most annoying person in the world.
Guaranteed.
I guess. In fact, just the thought of that.
So,
3 times the joke.
we tried to make heads and tails of it,
didn't.
of our Crisis.
Just an overview so you understand what each one is before going into Final Crisis.
If you're a fan of DC, it's must reading. I mean, if you want to know what's going on from the universe standpoint, from continuity
You
standpoint.
can feel free to not continue reading Crisis and just read the Wikipedia entry. At the end, there's one arc.
Hey, I think it's a fantastic series. I love
Yeah,
Crisis.
it was great. Yeah, it was really, really good.
Like pulling coal up a hill.
You're
with
just
no wheels in your cart.
You're just sour. Did you say the email? I was
I did
drinking.
not.
All right. Contact@ifanboy.com if you want to send us an email.
Or you can call our voicemail line at 188-FANBOYS. It's 1-888-326-2697.
A good place to tell me that I'm a moron is reason3.com/ifanboy at the forums there. And also a good place to see all of our other videos and our minis, which come out every weekday in short little form.
You can go to ifanboy.com. We got lots of fun stuff there. You can go there and pull your comics. Tell us what you're buying each week. Go to the pull list section. It's lots of fun.
I'm totally going to be Psycho Pirate for Halloween.
You should be.
There's going to be threads about the Final Crisis.
Tell us who your favorite character in Crisis is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do that on the thread.
Good night.
What?
I don't even know what that means.
I hit the finger.
Every time. Come on, tucked in.
Tuck. He's a tucker.
He is a Tucker.
Would you fuck me?
That was funny.
I can't see what I'm
I'm checking the pillows.
Those aren't pillows.